So good afternoon, everyone. My colleagues Linda Darling-Hammond and Lieb Sutter and I looked at indicators of teacher supply and demand in California to understand where there might be shortages and the factors that would influence those shortages. We reviewed several data sources, including data from the California Department of Education, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, the UC and CSU university systems, and teacher and principal surveys. And while there are several factors that influence the teacher workforce and its distribution in California, I'd like to highlight our findings on just two of those factors: teacher preparation enrollments and teacher attrition. Teacher preparation enrollments dropped about 70% over the last decade, with a slight uptick in enrollments in the past 2 years. And the number of teacher candidates completing their programs has also been in decline the past few years. Based on national estimates, anywhere from 10 to 25% of program completers won't make it into the teaching positions within 4 years. So although we don't have that the data necessary to estimate how many completers begin teaching in California. With declines in teacher preparation enrollment and completion rates, California doesn't produce enough new teachers to meet the demand for new hires across the state. And even with out-of-state teachers and re-entrants or teachers who've left the teaching profession and are returning, there aren't enough teachers to make up the shortfall. And many districts have turned to hiring teachers on substandard credentials and permits that can only be granted when fully prepared teachers aren't available. Substandard credentials have increased by 260% since 2013, and emergency style permits, which are issued to teachers who have not demonstrated subject matter competence, and in many cases have not entered into a teaching training program, have increased nearly 7-fold, representing the fastest growing category of substandard teaching authorizations in the state. In some rural areas, rural districts, all new teachers were hired on emergency style permits in fall 2017. And in some large districts, teachers on emergency style permits made up as much as 30% of new hires. Teachers in California's high minority schools are 3 times as likely to be teaching on emergency style permits than teachers in low minority schools, and are twice as common in high poverty schools compared to low poverty schools. And scholars cite several potential reasons for declines in teacher preparation enrollments, such as a perception that that there's job insecurity stemming from highly publicized teacher layoffs, the politics associated with teacher evaluations and accountability policies. California teacher prep programs cite inadequate numbers of qualified applicants and inadequate financial aid as key challenges to increasing enrollment. Another factor that influences shortages is teacher attrition, or teachers leaving the profession. While the demand for new teacher hires is driven by several factors, student enrollments and pupil-teacher ratios, the lion's share of demand for new hires is to replace teachers who leave, and most attrition is pre-retirement attrition, or teachers leaving mid-career. So recruitment alone is not enough to solve shortages, since high rates of turnover quickly undo schools' efforts to bring in new hires. Recently, about 8.5% of teachers leave the profession or state each year, and another 8% leave their current school to move to another. Teachers designated as not highly qualified, in California that means those teaching out of field or on emergency permits, are nearly twice as likely to turn over. And again, these are teachers who are more likely to teach in schools serving students of color and students from low-income families. When schools have high turnover rates, it can affect student achievement, can lead to a revolving door of inexperienced and underprepared teachers for those students. Teacher turnover is higher in schools serving more students from low-income families, schools serving more students of color, low-achieving schools based on test scores, non-suburban schools, so that's schools in towns, and urban and rural areas. Turnover is also more common among Black, Native American, Native Alaskan, and multiracial teachers. Teachers of color are more likely, again, to teach in schools serving students of color and students from low-income families. And while there's no recent data on why California teachers leave their jobs, federal data suggests that teachers report leaving teaching or moving schools due to dissatisfaction, lack of administrative support, and unsatisfactory working conditions, among other reasons. And according to the Getting Down to Facts 2 survey of California teachers, about 80 to 90% are reasonably satisfied with their jobs, and many like working in their current schools and districts. However, teachers of color and teachers in high poverty and high minority schools are much more likely to report that biases and stereotypes make it difficult for staff of particular backgrounds or identities to advance in their districts. And it's possible that that could contribute to higher turnover rates in the schools where they teach, but that's an area for more research. I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you.